All right, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to get into some source material. It tackles something lots of people find important, but, well, maybe challenging. How to share faith.
Ah, right. Yeah, that can feel tricky sometimes. Or maybe a bit pressured.
Exactly. So we've got this guide here. It lists a whole bunch of practical ways to go about it.
Sounds useful.
And our mission today is really to zero in on the key insights from this source, specifically for you listening.
Great. Having something practical and thoughtful to ground us is, well, it's really helpful on this topic.
Totally agree. So the source kind of kicks off with some foundational principles, things that feel, pretty essential.
Like what?
Well, like listening, a lot more than speaking, which feels maybe counterintuitive if you want to share something.
It does, maybe at first, but the source really explains why. You need to actually understand where the other person is,
Right. Get their perspective first, their questions, their experiences, not just launch into a speech.
Exactly. It's about understanding, not just telling. And linked to that, the source talks about looking for practical ways to serve people.
Service.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That builds trust, doesn't it?
It really does. It's showing you care, living out your faith. It makes it tangible.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of how we talk, the source is super clear about using kindness.
Yeah.
And deliberately avoiding arguments.
That's a big one. Arguments just tend to, well, they build walls, right? Shut down the conversation.
Yeah. Whereas kindness, even if you disagree on stuff,
keeps the door open, preserves the relationship for, maybe future talks.
Okay, so those are some core ideas the source covers: listening, serving, kindness. Crucial stuff.
Definitely foundational.
But there's this one idea the source keeps circling back to, almost like the bedrock for everything else.
And that is patience.
Patience. Yes, the source really anchors on that, calls it essential.
And it explains why, too. It says coming to faith. It's usually not this instant thing. It's a process.
A process, a journey. That's how the source frames it. People need time, significant time. Yeah, time to really hear stuff, process it.
Wrestle with doubts, questions.
And time to actually see faith lived out, consistently, over weeks, months. Maybe even years.
Exactly. It's not like flipping a light switch. The source actually uses a powerful example for this.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus himself, his patience, especially with his own disciples.
Right, like that bit in Mark chapter 9, I think, where they're arguing about who's the greatest disciple.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think he might just reprimand them sharply, right? For being so self-focused.
Totally. But what does the source point out?
That instead, he just patiently used it as another teaching moment. About humility, about service. Again.
Wow. He didn't expect him to get it instantly.
No, he knew it took time, consistent, patient guidance. That example itself really shows this long-haul approach.
Which flows right into the practical ways the source suggests we can be patient when sharing faith. First one is building relationships over time.
This isn't about just one conversation and done. It's investing, real long-term friendships.
So being present in someone's life consistently.
Yeah, so conversations can happen naturally over time. Trust builds gradually. It's less about a single event and more about just being a patient friend.
Okay. And tied right into that is praying and trusting God's timing.
This is key. The source reminds us while we're doing all this listening, serving, building friendships, we're not actually in control of the outcome.
Right. It's not all on our shoulders.
Exactly. Trusting God means acknowledging He's working, too, in the other person's heart, even if we don't see results right away.
So prayer becomes about aligning with that, trusting His timing, takes the pressure off, maybe.
It really does. Removes that pressure to make something happen. And that itself, well, it requires patience, too.
Good point. And the last practical thing mentioned, celebrating small steps.
Yeah, I like this one. The source recognizes that any movement towards faith is often really gradual. So celebrate any step.
Like someone just asking a question. Or being a bit more open than before.
Exactly. Or even just softening their stance a little. Celebrating those small things. It validates the process for everyone involved.
Yeah.
Reinforces that progress isn't always some giant leap.
Okay. So bringing it all together, patience is so crucial, the source says, because ultimately we can't make it happen. We don't control the outcome.
That's the absolute core message here. The decision, the timing, the result. The source is clear. That's in God's hands. Not ours.
Which changes how you see patience then. It's not just waiting around.
No, it's active trust. It's continued presence. Focusing on walking alongside someone, not dragging them to a finish line on our schedule.
So yeah, lots of practical methods in this source, listening, surveying, kindness, but wow, the emphasis on patience and that long-term relationship building. That really stands out.
It really does. It feels like the foundational insight.
So to wrap up,
Well, thinking about that core idea, if the ultimate result isn't actually in our hands but in God's, how does that fundamentally shift things for you? How does that change your approach, the pressure you might feel, or even how you define success in these kinds of interactions?
it's definitely something to chew on. Reflect on how that insight from the source might change things